Welcome to the New Hope Origin video series. This is Cindy Farrington, the executive director and founder of New Hope. I'm Shonda Llewellyn. Today, she's actually going to tell us how God provided the first building that New Hope was started in.
Yeah. Um, when my husband and I moved our family back to the Centerville area, and I started working on setting, things up for New Hope, so people began telling me about this prayer group that had been meeting in the Centerville area for like many years. And the group was made up of people from several different churches, were getting together to pray for the pastors, the churches in the area. They were praying for a revival, and they said they were praying for a way for the body of Christ to like come together on something. And each one was telling me about it. They would say, what you're working on sounds like what they've been praying for, And then each one ended by saying they meet in this place they call the upper room. So when the time came that we had all of the counseling materials, ready, I'd been working for 2 years just getting things prepared so that you could file articles of incorporation. So to get to that point. So we did that, and then all we needed was a place to start.
Awesome.
And so I just said, Lord, I have done everything that you've asked.
Right.
And we're ready. All we need is a place, but we don't have any money for it.
Right.
So
now what?
we need you to do something. Yeah. So before I even realized it, the Lord had arranged for me to meet the woman who led that prayer group that I'd been told about. And she and I met for lunch one day, and I got to hear about her life, and I got to share about what I was working on. And by the time the end of our conversation, I found out that she owned a building in Centerville, just off the west side of the square. And it had been her husband's law office had been located in the whole upper floor. And he had passed away, and the building had sat empty for a few years. It was Connie Drake was her name.
Okay.
And she was one of the most special people in my life through this whole thing. By the end of our lunch that day, she had offered to let us use the entire top floor of that building for free. Wow. No rent, no utilities, and we were there for 8 years.
That's wild.
It was just amazing. But the best part of the story is that it was the actual place where that upper room prayer group had met for all of those years.
It's incredible.
Yeah, isn't that just like God to put it in the place where they had prayed for so long?
Right.
He is incredible, and one thing after another happened, just that same way.
But 8 years, you were there for free.
Free. Okay. 8 years, and so we were really comfortable there.
You can't say no to free. That never happens. So that's cool that you had 8 years to bloom and to grow without all the extra. I'm sure if you still had like material expenses.
Yeah, I mean, there was printing, and there were a few expenses. Staff, kind of got added. The counseling part was growing, so we did have to have a couple paid staff people.
That's awesome.
At one point, but expenses were always really, really tight.
Right.
We had a couple people, who gave monthly donations, a couple churches, but God was teaching us a lot of lessons about learning how to trust Him for all of our needs. He did do one thing after another just like that, giving us the building that helped New Hope get established and continue to provide for it. He did miracles, but you realize what things are like when you need a miracle, right? Yeah, there were trials and testing and even persecution, which, blew me away. But, the long suffering, hard times, things that required perseverance and just tested your commitment.
Right.
But it really was bringing the body of Christ together.
Right.
You know, from different churches and backgrounds, and we're coming
Denominations
together.
wasn't a big thing. It
Yeah,
was just,
yeah. We all,
Right.
you know, agreed on the main tenets of our faith. You know, volunteers had to agree to with our statement of faith, but you know, that's the common ground, and we were
Right.
able to come together and work on something together. So it was happening what that prayer group had prayed for all that time.
Awesome. I love it.
Yeah.
So it was free. What was your next step? I mean, you had
Yeah.
this, you said 8 years. That's
Yeah, we were there.
incredible and unheard of. So
Yeah.
what was your next step?
We were there for 8 years, and then God decided it was time to really test our faith.
Of course.
When Connie, you know, she decided with much prayer that it was time for her to sell the building. She was in her retirement years, and it was just a lot of upkeep for her.
Right.
And I knew she was following the Lord's instructions.
Right.
And it was hard for her to do, but God was just seeing if we were going to be able to trust Him to take care of us.
Absolutely.
And seeing how much our faith had developed, or probably it was letting us see how much, you know, faith we had.
Right.
So we had already had a lot of, you know, learning how to trust God for our needs. Even though we didn't have to pay rent or utilities, you know, we did have some expenses. And we were operating a budget entirely on faith. There was nothing guaranteed.
Not everybody could do that. So
oh my goodness.
That's a calling for sure.
Like I said, finances were always extremely tight, and you know, it's stressful when you are learning to trust God completely.
Right. When you have payroll too.
Yeah, that's when it takes it to another level of, you know, when I'm responsible for
other people.
Other
Yeah.
people.
Right.
Yeah, that was it was stressful. You're learning how to trust Him, but it was high highs as well, you know,
Right.
as we would see God do incredible, totally unexpected things to provide for our needs, usually last minute, so that we would get the full effect, you know, of the lesson.
That He's in charge.
Yeah, yeah, and that we can trust Him. You know,
Right.
He would come through.
Right.
So there we were having to leave the building that we'd been in for 8 years and not knowing where we were going to go. No idea. Nor did we have enough money to pay any rent. So, but we were praying, you know, we knew we were doing what God had directed us to do, and we knew He had started it, so we knew He would do something about it.
You were in a great place to have faith.
Yeah.
That's all you had.
Exactly. You know, you can't do anything else but have faith.
Right,
So it's
right.
like all in on the faith. Okay. Yeah. So, and then we actually found out that He had already been planning it for like many years. When you get on the other side and you
Crazy.
see what He had been doing behind the scenes before you
Right.
ever even realize, it's like, oh my goodness.
It's wild.
So Dick and Jan Allen were on our board of directors then, and they still are today.
Okay.
They had a house in Centerville that they had been trying to sell for 2 years, and it never sold, you know. Dick had become a pastor, and he was serving at a church in another town, and they were living in the parsonage, you know, and so they had their house up for sale in Centerville, but you know, 2 years it had never sold. And they said that when they knew the New Hope's need for a new location, when that came up, they said they both knew why God had not sold their house.
That's awesome.
That it was supposed to be for New Hope while we needed it. Cool. So they let us use their house for free, rent free. We did pay utilities there. Okay. As you know, donations had increased a little bit. The counseling ministry was continuing to increase. Production of the New Hope materials was increasing by that time as people, you know, were ordering our materials, and, you know, we had to put them together. So we did have to have some, you know, paid staff. And that's when, you know, like I said, I really had to learn how to trust on another level when you're responsible for other people too. And there were just so many times that there wasn't any money. I mean, none, you know, and the day before the electric bill was due, we would get something in the mail, those kinds of things.
right.
Is, exciting, but
So this was like after your first 8 years, this was like the teenage years almost. It's like you started having like
yeah, you're probably right.
some reasonable bills coming in besides payroll and material. And yeah, it's like every step you were taking, God made you have more faith than the step before. So he was building those faith muscles.
Faith muscles.
For sure.
Yeah, we had no idea why, but we would find out later.
But I love how he's like, you always watched him provide, and I love to see that still to this day.
Oh,
for
absolutely.
this ministry, it's still growing, and to sit back and watch him provide. And that's one thing that I've come to learn in my life is whatever God calls for, he provides.
He is. Yep. And that's one thing we prayed so many times was, Lord, we know you called us to do this, and we know you have promised to provide everything we need to do it, to obey you.
Right.
So we expect you to do something.
Right.
And he does. It's just amazing because each step, the expenses get higher, so you have to trust him for more.
Right.
And it does get a little easier, but
Which
at that time it was still really hard.
You wouldn't think it gets easier because it's another step of faith. It's a different level of it. But
yeah. Sometimes even, I would wait for my paycheck, but God always made it up, and it was usually in a special way. So that was kind of cool. Like I said, it was exciting, but I still say that I probably wouldn't be on blood pressure medicine today if I'd have learned how to trust him completely quicker.
And that's all of us. We're all learning, and, we all have to take those lessons in.
Yeah. So then, and that house, that Dick and Jan let us use, it was a beautiful house. It was on the edge of town. There was a screened-in porch overlooking a wooded area. We'd sit out there and have our morning prayer time. And it was just a really special, couple of years. Everybody really loved being there. It was a homey atmosphere for the counselees, and everybody just loved it. But then after 2 years at that beautiful location, when Dick was no longer pastoring, they needed their house back.
Imagine that.
Yeah. So it was another test of faith for us, and more miracles of God's provision, as we were following his leading. We were really blessed to have board members that had some big faith.
Right.
So after praying about it, they believed God was saying it was time that we took a step of faith to purchase a property, so that we'd have a little more stability and not have to move the entire ministry so often. Like that was a major undertaking.
I'm sure.
Just to move it. Yeah. So we started looking at places that were for sale. And again, we did not have much money. So it was pretty sad looking for us. I remember one house, me and two other ladies who were on the staff at that time, one house we looked at, and I knew we would be given a good deal on it, but it was in such bad shape. I remember we got back in the car after looking through it, and we just sat there and cried. But even through our tears, we were literally saying, if this is a place you provide for us, Lord, we will be so grateful. We'll be so thankful.
I feel like sometimes you're in that position and all you can do is like ugly cry.
Yes, it was.
And get back to work.
Yeah.
Just like pray and be like, if this is what you want, great.
We will receive it from you gratefully,
Or show us the next step.
Yes. Yeah. So
I love that.
After looking at many houses, that we thought were in our price range, which was low, the Lord made us aware of a house that was owned by a pastor who had moved away from Centerville.
Awesome.
And it had sat empty for 2 years. He hadn't been able to sell it. This was right when the housing market was at its lowest. Which is a good time to buy, but he hadn't been able to sell it for 2 years. And kind of just, a God arranged thing, we made contact, and he called. I think he called to order some materials, and he was asking how things were going, and I was asking him how things were going, and he's like, we just really need prayer because our house still hasn't sold. And I was like, what? So again, God just arranged all of that. It had a brand new roof, new furnace, air conditioning. It was well insulated, so we knew there would be zero maintenance. And honestly, that's what we had to have, because if we were making a monthly payment, we could not afford maintenance.
Right. You didn't have a maintenance crew.
It was maintenance free
on your staff. So,
yeah.
So you had this place you were checking out, but still you didn't really have the money.
Exactly.
So,
I mean, it was beautiful. It was laid out perfect.
Yeah.
It didn't need anything. We didn't even need to paint walls or anything. You would be able to just move in. But we still didn't have what we needed to do it. So after the staff and the board members all prayed about it,
right,
because this was far better than anything we expected.
Right.
We felt like the Lord was telling us to send out a letter to our entire mailing list.
Okay.
Let them know the situation and just see if people would contribute to the need. And it was kind of how, it was going to be our sign from the Lord if we were supposed to get this house.
Right.
Whether anything came in or not.
So you had 30 days.
Yeah, we thought we should.
Thought 30 days.
If we'd have to give it at least 30 days to see what came in.
Okay.
So that and then we could make our decision.
Okay.
2 days after sending the letter out,
the 30-day letter.
Yeah, the Allens called to tell us that their superintendent of their denomination had someone ready to appoint to be the pastor there.
Perfect.
So they could have had to gotten out of the parsonage within 2 weeks.
Right.
And
so
that kind of
30 days to 2 weeks.
Yeah. So we're like, okay, we don't even have 30 days to find out if this is going to work. But in only 2 weeks, $11,220 had come in the mail for this. And we'd never even seen that much money before.
But that was the down payment.
Oh my goodness. Right? Yeah, it would be enough for a down payment.
Okay.
So that was our sign, clear sign.
Yeah.
But which then required another miracle for something that we hadn't even thought of.
Right.
And we didn't until a man from one of our supporting churches came to us and offered to buy the house for us, and we could pay him on contract.
Wow.
At no interest.
Wow.
And because he said it first, because he knew it would be really hard for us to get a loan from bank with no, guaranteed income. Right. We're just operating on donations and a budget on faith, and that doesn't look good on a loan application.
You don't go to the bank with a budget of faith.
Yeah, exactly. They don't usually jump at that. So, so that's what we did, and God did so many more miracles while we were there. And in only 2 years, he had paid off the entire $60,000 purchase price.
Wow.
Like we'd never had that much money, come in.
Yeah.
So that was all paid off. And
that's amazing. So you had your bills plus the house, and within 2 years it's paid off.
Yeah.
And so you're probably like, oh, the next several years are going to be like easy, comfy.
We can just relax now. Right.
That, anytime God, I've never been in a phase in my life that I've been able to have easy street for very long.
Yeah.
So I bet God had some other plans for you guys.
Yeah. By that time, we had a very small thrift store in a separate building, which also was rent-free.
Nice.
And that's another story for another video. But it was bursting at the seams. I mean, it was tiny, and there was only room to sell clothes, and it was bursting at the seams even from the moment we opened it, really. And we really did need to move it into a larger building. People had been saying, the whole time it had been open, you really need a bigger building, like a big Morton building so that you can sell furniture and households, and stuff. But we knew that we couldn't do that unless God provided something that the whole ministry could be in one building. We couldn't pay for 2 locations.
Right.
So that was kind of ball in his court. And that is a God-sized story that will require a whole nother video, because God, it was how God led us to move from our really comfortable little $60,000 house to purchasing the local auto dealership property for $525,000.
Wow. Wow.
That is the $500,000.
Yeah,
So,
that takes a little faith.
that's a whole nother story. So
Yeah,
it might even
definitely.
take more than one video to tell that one.
So that will probably be the next video. But yeah, that story is huge and amazing, and God's footprints
And you were
blessings.
along for the ride for that one.
Yes.
So the whole time.
And it
was fun.
So we'll be able to like tell that as an encouragement to everybody, but also to ourselves as we
Yeah.
like rehash the story and hear all of the main points again. But you know, it's like it's amazing to watch God provide for everything. And these origin videos are just it's just us bragging up God. Like it's not us bragging on ourselves. It's like this is what God did and this is how he blessed and his miracles to make this grow from nothing.
Yeah.
And
how he provides every time,
Right.
like in miraculous ways. It does strengthen your faith because as things progress, you need to have bigger faith
Right.
for bigger things.
right.
But when we remind ourselves of all of those things that God did for us, every time he never let us down,
Never,
he
yeah.
always came through,
Right.
then it gives us even more confidence and, greater trust, easier trust when we need bigger things.
Right. And I think that, you know, like I don't think the whole community knows that the thrift store helps fund everything.
Yeah.
And the Christian counseling here is free. And so we always want you to be aware that you can email us or call us anytime for that. And just the whole step of watching God provide is just amazing. So be watching for more videos on our YouTube channel. Give us a like and subscribe, and we'll be back next time with the origin videos of New Hope. Bye.